Yo, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon to you in fifth hour. I wanted to spend just a few minutes this morning explaining a few things about this reconstruction timeline that I'm unable to be there to share with you this morning. I have a chipped tooth, I need to get that taken care of. So, taking a look at you should have in front of you right now the timeline as well as the required items for the timeline. Same exact concept as last time, but I wanted to share with you the nuances of this one because you can see that I've got more years scrunched into this timeline than I did the last one. The last one was just 4 years with a little bit at each end. This one's got to cover 10, and so we don't have as much room to go with, and so the definition is not going to be as easy. Also, the textbook doesn't give you for many of these items the month and date, the day of the month. And so you'll just be given, in May of 1867. Okay, so just make sure that when you put this item on the timeline that it falls within the month generally, but don't have to worry about exactly where. So looking at the timeline that I have in front of you, you can see that there's an example. So April 14th, 1865, Lincoln's assassinated at Ford's Theater. Yeah, that's the one I give you. Let's do another one together real quick while we are here. But just know that 1865 is represented as this being this month, and I hope I still have that. I hope I have the right when I count out my lines. So the fall of 1865, President Andrew Johnson announces Reconstruction is over. That's according to your timeline, or according to your textbook. They give you that fall of 1865. I just put it in October. Okay. Now, looking at how the years are spaced out, you can see that 1865 is this partial year here. It's basically given a full year, but I don't have a big bold black line. And then at the far end, 1876 with a few months left over. I'll give you a suggestion here that the last item on the timeline, I believe, is the inauguration of President Rutherford B. Hayes. That's going to be, write this down, March 4th of 1877. And so that's going to be over here. That's going to be the one event that you'll find is over here. Everything else will fit, based on what you find either in your textbook or find using your mobile devices on this. But all these events, as you can see them here, all these events will fit nicely. 2 points before I leave you today. This item, the readmission of all southern states, this is not one item. Okay? There's a map on page 326 of your textbook that shows the dates of readmission back into the Union of the southern states. And what your task is to identify when these states are readmitted. The years are given in that map. And so, for instance, South Carolina and Arkansas, I believe, and as well as a few other states are readmitted in 1868. It doesn't tell us a whole lot. It'd be nice to know what month, if possible, these states are readmitted. If you're so inclined, if you have an availability, I'd look these up. You'll find the readmission dates, Wikipedia. You'll find them elsewhere, but at the very least, put them in the year. Okay, so you might be able to group a couple of states together into one block as you put that on the timeline. But pay attention. This is not just one item. This is 11 items. Possibly, you can group the 11 into a few. Okay. If you want to leave that one until later, and I can address that in class tomorrow, we can do that. Also, down here at the bottom, it says demonstrate the 3 phases of Reconstruction: presidential Reconstruction, radical Reconstruction, and the end of Reconstruction. Your textbook identifies what presidential Reconstruction is. Yesterday, we identified that radical Reconstruction begins when Congress basically says to President Johnson that your former plans are illegal. And there's a law. Okay, this law identifies when that happens. So when this law was created is when radical Reconstruction begins, and it continues until the end of Reconstruction. Now, these 3 things, these phases of Reconstruction, should be identified not as a block with a line, but as somehow what I would do, I would like to see you use colored pencil and use like a color. So like you coloring here like green, right? And this green block is President's Reconstruction. And then you color in, you know, a big chunk along the timeline in red and make that Radical Reconstruction. And then whatever the end is, right, make that, you know, orange or whatever, and call it the end of Reconstruction. That's what I would do. Label it right actually truly on the timeline where all of your other items are blocks above and below the timeline with lines that go and point to the exact reference date. So those are just a few points. If you have any questions, always you can ask me later, tomorrow, and we'll address that. Tomorrow we're going to jump back into looking at the end of Reconstruction. We'll be looking at finishing up those notes and then the consequences in the aftermath of Reconstruction. So be paying attention to that as you read or as you complete your timeline, and then we'll work on our timeline as we proceed to the end of the week. So hopefully this was helpful. You have the remainder of the time to work. You may work in pairs. That's my suggestion. But each person, each individual has to create their own timeline. And you may listen to music while you work. I think you've done a really good job recently of kind of settling in and blocking out the world so that way you can be effective and productive. However, the sub that's in the room always retains the right to take a person's personal device away and return it into the office if he or she believes that there's a need for disciplinary action there, right? So do not question that. It's a privilege, not a right. So with that said, I wish you a fantastic day.